Good afternoon, my friends. Thank you very much for being here with me. I'm going to read from Break the Cycle, Options for Managing a Personal Addiction, Lesson 1.32. Skipping the first paragraphs, are you addicted? If you are not sure, study this trait and see if they fit. If you are ruled by a protective false self, realize that your evaluation may be skewed. Search the web for addiction assessment resources. Learn the criteria for selecting qualified professional to assess for the symptoms of one or more the 4 types of addiction. The websites, the major anonymous addiction recovery organizations like AA, Al-Anon, OA, NA, ACOA, GAFA, SAA, and CODA are good starting points. Study the resources at aselden.org. Hire a qualified addiction therapist to help you to make an honest assessment. Do not expect veteran therapists to know about false self-works yet. Option: refer them to these articles and ask their reaction. And response. There is important to know the difference between reaction and response. Okay. If you conclude you are actively addicted, would decide if you believe that addiction, recovery, sobriety must precede full recovery from psychological wounds. If you don't, expect to live the constant possibility of relapsing. See the difference between conditioning and addiction. In order to be psychic healthy, you also need to clean all your conditioning. I haven't seen yet an article from Peter Gerlach how to do the reconditioning. However, human design has very good tools depending on your type of aura. Okay, I think by the time this video goes live, I already have done videos about it. Okay. Status check. On a scale of 1, I'm sure I'm not addicted to anyone or anything, to 10, I am sure I am addicted now. What do you believe? Don't forget that most people are conditioned / addicted to this Facebook and to the handy, okay, to the mobile. Where would the people who know you best rank on this scale now? If you feel you are truly addicted, why are you reading this? Note that there is no such thing as being a little addicted, any more than you can have a little leukemia. That's a good joke. Premise: if you have several requisites, you can manage versus cure your addiction successfully. For example, you can find a healthier way to reduce your inner pain. This article outlines these requisites and how to use them. Perspective: we are supposed to live in the moment, to be feeling. Premises: all addictions are unconscious attempts to reduce significant inner pain. For example, shame, guilt, hurt, anger, confusion, fear, sadness, and despair. Typical addicts like you realize that their behavior hurts themselves and other people, but they don't know the cause of their inner pain, of a healthier way to manage and reduce them. Okay. Don't forget that the last addiction is the sinking addiction. The purpose in life is to be in the moment. That's the ascension process, okay? To become creators of life, okay? Of our own reality. For that, you need to understand syncretism, okay? And you need to understand quantum physics. The atom, okay? It's very important. After 36 years of research and clinical personal experience, I propose. This is Peter Gerlach. You may have learned to numb and repress your psychological pain since childhood, and will probably feel I have no major inner pain. If so, this is a normal false self-reality distortion. Your inner pain has been caused by the effects of the wounds and ignorance cycle of your childhood caregivers and you, and the healthier way to manage your pain and permanently end your addictive behaviors has 4 phases. Hit false bottoms, attempt, try, recovers, and relapse 1 or more times. Hit through bottom, often in midlife. You cannot force this to happen. Then learn about your wounds and ignorance. Break your protective denials and commit to some of your high-priority 12-step program for at least a year. And as you do, commit to using the ideas in lesson 1 here to free your true self and intentionally reduce your psychological wounds pains over time. The rest of this article outlines these phases and links to a more detail of each of them. Hit through bottom. Premise: a true addiction, toxic compulsion cannot be controlled by willpower or logic, because it is called by well-meaning guardian personality subselves who rigidly focus on achieving short-term relief from inner pain and the expense of long-term unhappiness to permanently stop addictive thoughts and behaviors. And the wounded person must accumulate enough pain and despair to override these subselves and, for example, to hit bottom or hit the wall, or like Abraham Hicks says, to have a contrasting moment. Some people are able to do this, often in middle life. For some reasons, other addicts A hit one or more triumph bottoms and relapse before hitting true bottom, and B they never hit true bottom and endure increasingly unhappy, unhealthy lives until they die prematurely. Yeah, you pay your stupidity with your own life. I'm sorry, but it's true. 3 key factors determine which of course of a person follows. A, the composition of their personality, and B, the degree of psychological wounds that they have acquired, moderate to extreme, and C, nurturance level of their current family and social environment, very low to very high. Implication: whether you have hit to bottom yet or not, you want to end an unhealthy compulsion. Honestly, A, assess A, yourself for psychological wounds, and B, the nurturing levels of your family and workplace and other environments. The knowledge you gain from these evaluations yields practical options towards reducing your inner pain and focusing a more nurturing environment. Lesson 1 in this non-profit website offers a concrete option and many resources to help you to assess these 2 factors effectively and improve them. For more perspective on hitting trial and true bottoms, read this article when you finish this. Questions: are you controlled by a protective false self too often? Have you hit true bottom yet? Note: is your true self is disabled? A false self will probably distort your answer. Where does maintaining your holistic health rank in your major life priorities recently? As you judged by your actions, not your words. Would other people who know you well agree with your answer? This is your true self answering these questions, or someone else. The next phase of addiction recovery starts when you break your denials to commit to a 12-step beliefs. To start effective addiction recovery, you need to dissolve at least several universal denials. I am not significant, controlled by a false self, psychologically wounded. I do not have significant inner pain. I do not have addiction. I can't quit anytime I want to. Well, don't forget that the last instance of addiction is the thinking, okay? And I got this from a couple that has a business in Australia, New Zealand. It's and they do also inner work, okay, using the chakras. And they think that the last addiction, and I agree, is the thinking, okay? Thinking is a binary process, okay? You are supposed to be feeling, okay? The ecstasy, the bliss, nirvana. This is the goal, the ascension, okay? I can control my life and end to enough to my environment. I do not need help from anyone else. I can live well enough without believing in and actively communing in a higher power. I can live life well enough without committing to the 12 steps and principles. I am not denying these things. Hitting true bottom makes it possible to want to replace each of these beliefs with their opposites without ambivalence and without knowing it to please other people. Some recoverers use the 12-step meetings and programs to help dissolve their denials. Other people hit true bottom and dissolve the denials first and then evolve to a meaningful 12-step program. A minority of true addicts are able to hit the bottom and maintain sobriety without a 12-step program. Sobriety means, if you are a drama addict, not to provoke drama, not to start problems, okay? If it is what Peter Gerlach said in a few shame, guilt, hurt, anger, confusion, fears, sadness, and despair, etc. So these are addictions. There are many types of addiction. Eating the nails, eating too much sugar. There are many addictions, many conditionings. For the condition, go to I think I believe, from my perspective, from my experience, for conditioning, I think that the human design is a better answers, and for addictions, the 12 program is better. Okay, to know the difference between addiction and conditioning. There is a little video that I did quoting some Wagner that he explains extremely well. He's an expert. The difference between addiction and conditioning. Okay. Similarly, some people start harmonizing their lives before starting permanently addiction recovery, and others need to primarily recover for at least a year before being able to admit and start reducing their psychological wounds. Each person discovers their own path. Well, Peter Gerlach doesn't mention, but I believe that you can only do this by yourself. You can't have family around. Okay, that's my experience. That's how I did it. Okay. Do I have to adopt the 12-step ideas? To answer that, keep your perspective. People commonly associate the 12 steps with alcoholic recovery. In the last generation, 12-step anonymous addiction groups, like the ones I've mentioned before, have spread internationally to help manage your 4 types of addictions. That suggests the universal effectiveness of the 12 steps and principles. My clinical research, that's from Peter Gerlach, and experience suggests that yes, you do need to adopt these proven principles on your own by attending the 12-step meetings and choosing a veteran sponsor as a guide and mentor. Almost 80 years of worldwide experience since AA was founded suggest that your odds of long-term health and recovery rise sharply if you choose to work the steps. Reluctance to accept this usually signs of distrustful false self. The big reasons for adopting a 12-step program are: the steps and principles help to break the 7 crippling denials above. Learning from veteran recoverers and meeting regularly with fellow recoverers and reaffirming the steps can significantly help to stay on recovery course despite distractions and inner urges to relapse. Most recovering addicts, grown wounded children or GWCs, are unaware of their psychological wounds, so they need to keep coming back. The 12-step meetings to avoid relapsing, if you choose to admit and reduce your wounds, will probably find you need to attempt meeting changes for essential to optimal. Socializing and helping others to recover. 12 steps. Does your reaction to this start with yes, but? If so, suspect a protective sub-self. Fears relying on some unknown principles and other people, and fiercely resist making changes that might threaten you and or cause the sub-self to control and power. Note that classic false self-fear is of the unknown, for example, of change. You have many choices, when to adopt the 12-step philosophy and the related recovery program. Start by learning what the steps are and what the people who use them sound like. To avoid personal and social confusion, note the distinction between the 12 steps and the 12 anonymous principles and 12 traditions. A useful way to learn is to locate the 12 steps meeting in your area and attend an open meeting. These are for anyone interested in learning more about the 12 steps program and philosophy. Closed meetings are for people in active recovery. They exist to identify the participants, which is based on the old misperception that addiction is a shameful act of willpower. Don't forget that according to human design, 65% of humanity has the willpower center undefined. So they do not have the emotion that they can support that decision. Okay, that's the reason why when you do the New Year's resolution, you cannot attach to them. Okay. Option: interview anyone who is open about working to control addiction. Typical women and men in true recovery are usually willing to discuss what they are recovering from, about on how they are recovering, and what the effects of recovering on them and their family have been so far. How can I choose an effective 12-step sponsor? Most people committed to a 12-step program eventually choose a sponsor to guide, encourage, and empathetically confront them on denials. Choosing such a mentor is as important as picking a qualified doctor, lawyer, and therapist. How can you evaluate potential sponsors and make a wise choice? I suggest that candidates should have most of all these traits. Be at least 35 or older for maturity and life experience. Be a biological parent if you are. Be married and or divorced or if you are or have been. Have personal step family experience and knowledge. If you are in the step family, or maybe have relapsed at least once in the past, not recently, and be willing to talk openly about it. Have been working in an effective step recovery program for at least 10 years. Have no signs of codependence and other cross addiction. Have a firm belief that active relationship with the benign versus punitive higher power. Yes. Be open to learning about the wounds and ignorance cycle and evaluate its effects is on her life and yours. Be willing to acknowledge the relationship between preliminary addiction and recovery and full psychological wounds recovery. Be skilled and patiently guiding you and in understanding and following the 12 steps. Be genuinely empathetic, affirming, supportive, and trustworthy, and the ideal sponsor will be willing to confront you directly and respectfully on your false self-protective deniers, delusions, distortions, and evasions as you recover. Option: with an open mind, reality check these criteria with the veterans 12-step recoverers who have experienced 2 or more sponsors in their own journey, and these advice to these criteria. If you are able to hit true bottom, break your denials, and commit to a preliminary 12-step recovery. The next keystones requisite for solid sobriety is to accept and reduce your psychological wounds. Recall the basic premise here, and all toxic compulsions addictions are attempts by personality subselves to mute or distract relentless inner pain. Do you fully accept that this idea applies to you now? If so, you are probably ready to act on what you are about to read. If not, you probably haven't hit true bottom yet. Are you motivated now versus willing to invest in time assessing whether you are inherit significant psychological wounds? If any answer other than yes suggests that the protective false self controls you and you haven't hit true bottom yet. Perspective. Since none of us had true perfect childhoods, we all have some degree of woundedness. So the real question is, how wounded am I? Not am I wounded. If you conclude that you have significant wounds, then use the ideas and resources in lesson 1 and its guidebook to evolve a personal wound recovery and plan that fits you. For perspective, review this article. It includes a summary of typical wound recovery benefits. As a professional therapist in wound recovery since 1986, I now believe that the most effective way to reduce false self-dominance is a form of part work, so in and family therapy. Lay and clinical people who don't agree with this usually have no knowledge of personality subselves and wounds and no direct experience with part works. Part 3 of Lesson 1. Here is a summary of part works. It is included the related book above. Parts 3 includes a specific strategy for using part works to overcome non-organic toxic compulsions like addictions, including codependence. Okay? There are many of other resources available now to help you to reduce your wounds over time. Books, programs, websites, support groups, and clinicians. Should I tell other people about my recovery? Yes. An essential recovery resource is having several minimal wound supporters who understand addiction and recover basics, understand what you are trying to do and why, are usually guided by their true selves, steadily empathize with and encourage you along your way, confront you respectfully if appropriate, and affirm your progress realistically. The ideal supporters are your mate, if any, and other family adults, unless they are grown wooden children in protective denial. Use this to decide if they are reluctant to fully disclose your recovery goals, efforts, and progress, or problems. Usually indicates that some subself distrust yourself to provide enough safety, and or some wounded supporters might stress rather than supporting. Recall that an essential part of true recovery is to assess the nutrients levels of your home, family, and social environments, and then to work patiently to improve those levels where needed. Recap. This article builds on the addiction and recovery subselves and inner wounds fundamentals. It outlines preliminary recovery options if you feel you have one or more addictions. Full recovery is reducing of psychological wounds and unawareness. The article proposes 3 requisites for successful preliminary recovery that suggest that managing active addictions is the essential gateway to full inner wound recovery. The article proposes reasons why adopting a personal 12-step program is essential and suggests traits to an effective 12-step sponsor. It also offers perspective on addiction and mood recovery if you are in a divorcing family or step family. As you work at addiction management and wood recovery a day at a time. Essentially pass on what you are learning to any dependent kids and key adults. The best gift you can give your descendants is alerting them to and working patiently to break the lethal wounds and ignorance cycle together. If you don't, who will? Exactly. Okay. So for more perspective, read these research summaries. U.S. parents need to educate grade school kids on not using alcohol. Eating disorders affect males too. U.S. overweight and obesity increasing. Self-neglect increasing in America. U.S. mental illness starts by age 14. Alcoholism harms female brains faster than male brains. Why we don't stop bad habits. If you are concerned about child, mate, and other adults who may be addicted, follow these links. Pause, breathe, and reflect. Why did you read this? Did you get what you needed? If not, what do you need? Who's answering these questions? Your true self or somebody else? Thank you very much for listening to me. This has been very helpful to me. I hope to you too. Leave your comments, likes, comments, and hit the bell button. For donations and requests, the email is down below. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.